welcome. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. Come on in the room, y'all. Should I play some music? I haven't done that before, but maybe I should play y'all some music. I'm always out here just like, hey, how's it going? Let me know how you doing in the chat. Welcome to Get Free Friday with Build Power. I'm opening up the room just a couple minutes early. I think I will play a little music and then we'll get started as our panelists start to come on in the room and arrive.
If you want to eat healthy and feel your best.
Welcome. I'm requesting Bernie.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Welcome, welcome. You and I haven't got a chance to meet before, but I'm Tia.
Yeah, pleasure. Mucho gusto.
Nice to meet you. And let's see if Abe is in here yet. Not yet. But while we're waiting, you can tell us a little bit about MILPA. You are the lucky one that gets a little more time.
I'm the lucky one, huh? Yeah. So MILPA. MILPA is an acronym for Motivating Individual Leadership for Public Advancement. We're based in Salinas and Watsonville, California. Nice coastal and agricultural area. So, most likely if you having eating strawberries, right? You're probably getting them from the hometown, right? That's what we're big on exporting down here. But we do a lot of we focus a lot on cultural healing, racial equity, intergenerational leadership, development, right? So it's just a cool organization with that's been built and led by formerly incarcerated individuals, right? And that's what and we just trying to do the right thing now, connect to the roots, to the culture, right? Have fun,
Yeah.
do some of that healing and stuff, some of that good stuff, so.
Yes, all that healing, organizing, power to the people. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm getting my Wi-Fi right.
Yeah, so just getting us warmed up with Bernie here, and we're waiting on Abe from Baji, and then we'll get started. As everybody's coming on in the room. Abe, I don't see you. I'm gonna text Abe. Okay, here we go. Nope. Somebody else trying to come on. It's not an open forum. I got something to say. Not quite. While we're waiting for Abe, welcome to Get Free Fridays, y'all. This is Tia with Build Power, our senior strategist. This is our series with the People's Coalition for Safety and Freedom, where we talk to dope-ass organizers all across the country who are helping to make our communities more free through organizing, through restorative justice, and through a nationally led people's process to write new legislation for public safety that would repeal and replace the 1994 crime bill. And our guest host today is the one and only Amanda Seals, who I've been a fan of for a long time. And we're going to be joined by Bernie from MILPA and Abe from Baji. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about the intersection of immigrant rights and racial justice. We're going to talk about the criminalization of Black and brown immigrant folks. And we're going to talk about how these organizers and other folks are organizing to break down some of these chains and some of these walls and these intersecting systems of oppression. And let's go ahead and get started while I figure out where Abe is calling in from. And then we'll get going.
Oh, man.
All right. Okay, I'm going to read the script that was provided by Tia so that I am on point. Okay? What's up? Well, thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all again for joining us for another Get Free Friday. We took a short break last week, but our Freedom Summer School series is back again. As always, we are here to drop more knowledge about the 1994 Crime Bill and 1996 Immigration Reform Act. 1994 Crime Bill, and share how our communities are pushing back against state-sponsored violence. By the way, I saw a video this morning of, what are we going to call him? Burnt Orange, saying that which honestly, like, burnt orange is not fair because I actually like the color burnt orange, and it has like a pumpkin.
Right, I like burnt orange.
Yeah, and it has like a pumpkin spice element to it, but whatever. But okay, crusty orange. Crusty orange said that other countries that don't have a problem with drug dealers don't because they execute them. And so he suggested that that's what we should do too. Which the irony of this is, you know how many of these doctors are drug dealers? So
right.
What are we? Because you know when they say drug dealer, they have a certain picture and a certain version of that, and they basically are just thinking of Weebay from The Wire. But we all know that there's a little show called I'm blanking out, but Better Call Saul will tell you that drug dealers come in many shapes, flavors, and sizes. So today we're going to talk about how the 94 Crime Bill ushered in an era of harsh immigration laws. And let me also just say that not everybody's a drug dealer because they're trying to buy a Benz, okay?
Real talk.
Survival, okay.
Survival, like lack of industry, lack of opportunity, et cetera, like all of these things. So, sorry. The 1994 Crime Bill and 96 Immigration Reform Act set the stage for the inhumane immigrant detention system we have today. And the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, is responsible for the imprisonment and maltreatment of millions of people seeking asylum and refuge. The horrific treatment of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border was put sharply into focus only months ago when shocking images of Haitians being whipped, welcome, by Border Patrol. By the way, the amount of people I saw being like, they're not being whipped. I'm like, what are y'all looking at? They're like, no, they were being urged strongly.
Wow.
I'm like, yo, the mental gymnastics y'all be doing is Simone Biles level. The incident serves sad reminder of the legacy of American slavery, and also our modern day police force was born from colonial white militias that displaced Native Americans and slave patrols that policed plantations and black bodies. I think some people think that's like a myth. You know, like when we say that about like where police forces were born, like they think it's like hyperbole or that it's like some, you know, that it's like some movie, and it's like, no, that's how it went. I don't know about other police forces, but that's how our police force.
The United States Police Force is the slave catchers.
That's where it germinated from. I am joined today by Abe and Bernie to talk more about how mass incarceration impacts immigrants in the United States. Abe and Bernie, please introduce. Well, I'm Amanda. So hi, I'm supposed to introduce myself. I'm Amanda Seals. I'm a comedian. I'm a social justice activist, advocate. I'm tired. I have a show, and I'm late because I have a show tonight in LA at the Novo called Smart, Funny, and Black, and we are loading in right now. But I was like, I got to pause for the movement.
Listen, Amanda is on tour right now and was like, I will give y'all 30 minutes to highlight the dope ass work y'all are doing. So we're so appreciative. And
I'm appreciative. Let me tell y'all. So I was with Snoop yesterday, and he was like, they ain't doing nothing to undo this crime bill. We need to get rid of this crime bill. And I was like, funny you should say that, because I'm working tomorrow with some folks who have committed their energy to that in that very specific way. So I sent him y'all's info, so hopefully y'all can connect. But please introduce yourselves.
Kick it off,
Come on,
Abe.
Abe.
Yeah.
So Bernie got on here early, so I already let Bernie chop it up and
Oh,
tell
my
everything
fault, my
about
fault,
like
my
how
fault.
MILPA was founded, what they be doing.
Okay.
Abe is an old friend of mine, so happy to see you, Abraham. How you doing? What's going
I'm
on?
good. I'm good. Apologies for being a little late. Thank you, Amanda, for taking time out. Bernie, good looks on showing up on time, holding me down for a bit. But yeah, I'm Abe Paulos. I'm the Deputy Director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. We are a racial justice and migrant rights organization, very political and focusing on organizing and getting sort of our people involved. And thanks again for having me on here.
So, can you guys tell us what ICE is and why it was created?
Absolutely. What it is that it separates families. That's what it does, right? It is a deportation force, and it started out after 9/11. And what happened was that law enforcement agencies around the country decided that they were going to sort of fuse information from different agencies and put it under one umbrella. And that umbrella became Department of Homeland Security. And there's a story out there that law enforcement agencies always like to talk about why ICE became ICE was because one of the quote unquote terrorists in the 9/11 attacks had gotten pulled over for a speeding ticket. While he got pulled over for a speeding ticket, his visa was also expired, right? And so they use this story, right, to conjure up fear, but to really say that we need local police officers to understand whether or not that these people we're pulling over are here unauthorized or whatever have you. The last point that I do want to say about ICE, that's why it was created, right? And I want, your viewers and everybody out there to understand that being in this country unauthorized, undocumented, expired papers, no papers is not a crime, right? So ICE essentially are the paper police, right? They're not out there in a situation where they're trying to, quote unquote, as much as they say that they do, stop crime. Absolutely not. These are paper tigers, paper police that cause havoc in our communities. They home raid, separate our families, and even in certain situations, like 21 Savage, I think in 2019, starting to do joint operations with police that end up, in certain cases, fatally also. So that's what they are. They're a deportation force that causes havoc in our community.
Yeah, if I may just add, and build upon that, it's important to also understand, right, that while ICE was created in 2003, right, INS, right, the Immigration and Naturalization Services was around since like the 30s, right? So that was like the time where the Bracero, at least in California, right, the Bracero program was going, labor, right, World War II, there was a void of laborers, right? So a lot of south of the border relatives, right, were getting hired, basically, being brought over. So just bringing that into context too is there's always been some type of immigration, right, ever since the Mexican American Civil War, right? Since that border was created, there's always been immigration services, quote unquote. And just to really, the way I like to see it, right, with ICE, because ICE is comprised of 3 departments essentially, right? You have the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is like enforcement, policing, and all that stuff. You have the Citizen Immigration Services, which I like to call like administration, and then you have Custom and Border Patrol, which is that security for the border, So there's 2003 after 9/11 is just like it's the current state of what immigration has become, So I just wanted to add that right there.
Absolutely, Bernie. And thank you for bringing up Border Patrol and ICE because they make up the largest law enforcement agency in the country. They're bigger than the DAEA, ATF, all of that. So I appreciate you on that, Bernie. Thank you.
How did you all become involved in this particular work?
I'm gonna let Bernie take over that one because I'm actually curious about how Bernie got into this work too.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And thank you for that question. You know, it's so I'm formerly incarcerated, right? Spent a lot of years behind the bars, you know, behind those walls, you know. But within that time that I spent back there, I became aware of like the many structural inequities, right? Systemic racism, all these things that are affecting the people, right? And predominantly just me being a brown Chicano indigenous man, right? I really focus on like, hey, what's been happening to me, right? What's been happening to my folks, my family, my region, you know? So doing all that reading, I came back home and MILPA was around, right? It was created by formerly incarcerated individuals also. Um, Luckily, you know, my bro, right? Some of my bros were working there already. My bro is, you know, also the executive director and stuff like that, you know. So there was an opportunity to use my lived experience, right? To start thinking about that lived experience and how we can utilize it to bring about awareness, right, of what's going on, especially to communities that are usually like really apathetic, you know, or just, you know, really struggling, you know. So that's how I came into this movement, you know, just by reading, by my lived experience, right, and by seeing the actual trajectory of the lives of some of my bros that I was locked up with, right, and seeing them actually thriving, start thinking different, doing something different, and actually fighting for justice, fighting for racial equity, right, for liberation, you know, just and doing it through like an honorable way, you know, doing it through a cultural way, right. So that's how kind of I got involved with the movement, with this work that I'm just learning, you know, and so a very exciting 3 years because I've been doing this for 3 years, so it's very exciting, you know, and I'm looking forward to this next lifetime of this stuff right here for sure.
Abe.
Thanks so much. Welcome home, Bernie, and just happy to have you on this side of the wall, man. So, I mean, somewhat similar. I mean, I think that I had ended up in Rikers Island here in New York on an unlawful arrest type situation, but they never think any arrest is unlawful, right? And it was thanks to the people that I was locked up with were very informed and had told me that ICE actually had an office in Rikers, like on the island. And because I'm a non-citizen and have had certain contact with the criminal system, that I was at risk of detention and deportation. Luckily, I was able to get out of that situation and came out and just like Bernie, got politicized, started organizing. You know, like Tia was out there also who helped me, you know, just understand the injustices and understanding that like this whole apparatus of mass incarceration, right, just there's an extension to it, and that extension is that deportation part, right? And so I think that, you know, very grateful and very blessed to get into the work that way, and also have had family members and loved ones. You know, ICE has broken up my family, so I lay that at their feet, right? And so I've had loved ones, cousins, and family members who are not around. So I feel like I'm not only fighting for myself, but fighting for my family and fighting for my community.
I mean, so the 94 crime bill, as we know, has disproportionately affected Black and brown communities. You guys are examples of the ways in which that statistic continues to move. Can you talk further just about the specific ways that it affects Black immigrants? Because there is this intersection of anti-Blackness, of mass incarceration, immigration that happens. It's a trifecta of fuckery. Right. That happens in order to create this, you know, this continual maelstrom of pulling in folks with these labels. So can you just talk more about that?
Absolutely, and thank you for cursing, because now I know that I can explain the fuckery. It's a help. I feel comfortable now.
Good.
Well,
good.
You know, the 1994 crime bill is the holy grail, right? It is the architect. Biden is actually the architect of that, but it is the piece of paper. It's the blueprint for how we got into this mess. And to just talk a little bit about the context of how, you know, what the 90s were, right? We were coming from the 70s and 80s, deindustrialization. You're talking about drug problems that we were having in the community, social problems, right? And the US government, Congress, got together and was like, here's how we're going to solve this problem. We're going to go to war, right? It was the war on poverty, the war on crime, and the war on drugs. And that's the 1994 crime bill, right? We'll solve this problem with weapons and cages. And how that affects immigrants is that right off the back of the 1994 laws came the 1996 immigration laws, the last time that immigration laws have been passed in this country, right? And they basically cut and paste from the bill. So I'll talk about two ways that they did that, right? In one way, right, all of sort of the drug offenses, right? So before 1996, there were certain drug offenses that will get you deported. After the 1994 crime bill, any drug offense, unless it's a little bit of marijuana, right, would get you deported, separated from your family, and you pretty much can't come back in. It's like exile, right? The second way that they basically plagiarized the 1994 crime bill, right, is using this term called mandatory, right? Mandatory detention and mandatory deportation, right? So they took those words out and just put it in the immigration bill by saying, if you get caught with any of this stuff, there is no bond, there is no relief, you're out of here. And how has that affected our communities, Black communities, right? 76% of Black people that get deported is because of contact with the criminal system. In the Caribbean, by and large, we're in the 80th percentile, right? And Amanda, I know your family's got some connection to Grenada.
Grenada, massive in the place.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that, right? And it's up into the 90th percentile, right? And my heart goes out to you and your community, right? So when these folks, when we're getting back into the island or back into the continent of Africa, right, they're just strictly just taking us from the prisons and taking us from the criminal legal system. And even folks in our Central American brothers and sisters, Mexico, 43 to 45% of folks, right? We're talking 80,000, 90,000 folks are getting deported. So what they're doing is exporting mass incarceration via deportations, right? And essentially they're globalizing, right, this problem that we have around rehabilitation, whatever it is, right? And the narrative, right, that Orange Krusty or whoever you call the narrative that they're talking about by saying we're undesirables, we are whatever we are, right? That to me borders social cleansing, right? It is a situation in which they're using this deportation system to say we want to cleanse our whatever it is society of it. And so that's how the 1994 crime bill basically spawned the 1996 immigration bill, right? And now we have a situation in which Black and brown people are essentially, you know, getting exported.
Yeah. Thank you, Abe, for that. And I'm gonna build on top of that too, because I think there's two important things that need to be lifted too. Is so it was the war on people, right? The 80s, 90s, right? War on gangs was big. The whole thing around super predator, right? So it creates this national narrative, fear tactics, right? I believe also because to my experience, right, and people sleep on this one too, thinking is the 1994 the NAFTA, the North American free trade, right? So which actually created this, like, I don't know if they did it like because they were just geniuses or something, but it created like this essentially, right? You got corporations moving out to Mexico, other places for cheaper to exploit labor, you know, circumvent taxes and whatnot, X, Y, and Z, right? So what that happened down in Mexico, and this is where like the Zapatistas movement comes into play and all this stuff, you know, it's like that big resistance that was going down there. Folks down there, they're losing their land, they're losing their homes, they're getting pushed out by these corporations, right? Because of NAFTA. So then you have this mass migration type of thing going on, right? And people are crossing, trying to get their visas, right? You got folks from the Central America, right? Trying to, you know, asylum and all these things. So you really have this whole fluctuation of migration going on based on exploitation, based on getting pushed out of their own homes. You know, it's not, now we're not even just getting pushed out of school and funneling into the prison pipeline, not, you know, we're actually getting pushed out of our livelihood, right? So what's the closest thing? You know, it's like the American dream, right? You know, everybody wants to, you know, look for it, chase it, and attain it. So this starts happening, and I believe that 96 comes into play, and they realize like there was a big fluctuation, right? A big, and this goes even more back too, even in the 80s with Reagan, right? When the relatives in Haiti, right? In the 80s, there was like a big migration, right, going on. They were trying to get away and stuff, but Reagan, what did Reagan do, right? He developed a program to just stop boats, search them, all this stuff, and send them back or send them down to South America, right? And so that's a whole more. So yeah, I just wanted to uplift that super predators, right? The national narrative and NAFTA. NAFTA, it has a big is a big component to migration south of the border in California, Texas, and Arizona area. You know, New Mexico.
I mean,
I just want to check on your time, Amanda, and lift up, you know, some of the points that folks are pulling through from your remarks in the chat around like the intersection of trade policy, the criminalization, and also racialized capitalism, how the policies that are passed to help global capitalists, right, to succeed, to drive down profits and make labor cheap are also the policies that feed into the mass criminalization system.
well, you know, I think it's fair to say that just it's like human nature that if people don't feel like things affect them directly, then they don't feel compelled to be a part of challenging or helping or changing. So, you know, there's a lot of people who are in this chat or who know people who are not in the chat that may not think this is really their issue because they may not be an immigrant or they aren't a hustler or, you know, they just feel like, it's not going to happen to me. But how do you feel like immigrant detention affects non-immigrants? And why do you think that the immigration issue is everyone's issue, whether or not they are an immigrant?
Right. So immigration detention, just to really like break it down very quick, it's a prison, right? And I think that in any society, if you have the state or the government or those that are your elected officials solving issues with prison, that's going to be a problem, right? And so they're trying to solve this immigration problem, right? Which really is just because there's more black and brown people coming here. That's the problem, right? And when it comes down to like immigration prisons, like in 1994, there were 6,000 people in immigration prisons, right? Now there's like almost 30,000, right? And again, shout out to the 1994 crime bill and all that and everything that Bernie talked about with NAFTA, right? So you're really looking at a situation here is that when someone says, why is immigration prisons my problem? Well, it's almost like, yo, prisons, if they're not your problem today, they will be tomorrow, right? Because they are trying to essentially, someone said chattel slavery on that. I mean, I think that that's exactly it. And it's also just excluding us from political, social, and economic life. And here's the thing about why does immigrants affect me, right? Being an immigrant is fluid, right? Everyone can get naturalized, right? So you might be an immigrant today, right? But in a year, 5 years, you're going to be a citizen. You're going to be allowed to vote. I mean, they're taking that too. Sorry about that. But you know what I mean? So I just sort of think that this idea of being like, why does it affect me, right? Should not stop anybody for fighting for justice and fight for human rights, right? So just because I might not necessarily be directly affected, I don't want to live in a society in which they're just locking people up, right? And throwing away the key and sort of saying, this is how we're going to solve it. Because they'll come for you tomorrow.
Yeah. You know, at one point, you know, and I'll take this time actually to acknowledge, uplift the original stewards of this land, right? To all those indigenous nations, right, that were murdered, right, that were targeted, right, exploited, all those things, right, that endured all those atrocities. I'm a first generation citizen born here, right? So I know immigration is very personal to me, just based on my family. They crossed over, right? You know, and some family members are still have no papers and stuff like that. And it's like that. It's people need to understand the fear. You know, the fear of trying to build a life, a family, always looking over your shoulder, right? And not necessarily looking at your shoulder for, you know, a cop or whatever. You know, all that also entails violence. You know, all those things, right? But being taken away from your family, right, and sent somewhere where either you ran away from because of violence, because of poverty, or you getting sent somewhere because you know, not somewhere because, but getting sent back to a place that you've never been. You know, there's a lot of folks that because of necessity, right? They come, you know, the parents bring their kids, you know, and we just seen that too with the not that long, a couple years back, where, you know, again, Crusty Orange, right, was taken away, you know, was ripping families apart and stuff. You know, people need to have empathy, you know, empathy, because we're human beings. You know, we deserve, our families deserve to stay together. You know, they deserve to be given an opportunity to contribute legally, right, in the eyes of the system, right, to contribute legally to society, right? It's like, it's this big thing is and I guess this, I'm going to go off a bit off the question, right? But I believe that, you know, if we have good reform, right, immigration reform, or good policies, right, that give good avenues for folks to become citizens, residents, right, it actually creates a better economy, right? It actually uplifts all the social services that, you know, that a lot of people complain, like that takes up too much money, you know, Medicare, childcare and stuff like that. You know, it's like we actually create more revenue, more wealth, you know, and essentially, you know, it's like just, yeah, it's really, people just need to care about people, you know. This is not a black and brown thing, you know. It's really a human thing, you know. And the national climate nowadays too is just so hostile, so violent, right? It's, you know, it's very divided, you know. It's like, in immigration, the truth is, like, everybody here has been, you know, this is an immigrated country, you know, and we just gotta need to recognize that, you know, there was indigenous folks already here, you know, there was already a life, you know, beliefs, a practice, a system in place already, you know, in this place. So I just wanted to uplift that right there, because, you know, hey, we gotta care, you know, and we gotta do something about it. You know, as Sada Shakur says it, you know, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It's our duty to win. We must love each other. We must respect each other. We ain't got nothing to lose but our chains, you know, and that's one of my mottos that I live through, you know. So
absolutely, man. And I appreciate you bringing up the indigenous sort of narrative too, right? Because I learned about this thing called the Trail of Tears, right, back in school. But really what it was that they were just deporting indigenous people to the west side of the country, right? So it's really about this idea of like the freedom of movement, right? Why is it that black and brown people can't move? You know, like I think about the African American migration, the northern migration, leaving Jim Crow, right? So anytime we want to move, it becomes a problem that has to get solved through violence, right? And they try to communicate, right, to us by saying, you don't have the right to movement, you don't have the right to vote, you don't have the right to drive or whatever have you, right? By using that violence as communication. And to go back to your question, Amanda, right? Why should anyone who's not directly affected care? And I would debate and be like, I think we're all affected, like Bernie said.
No, I agree, and I appreciate, you know, you guys bringing me into this conversation today and getting me an opportunity to talk to you all more about this, because I always hear lately a lot of folks, particularly that are in the Black community, I hear this commentary about, like, you know, the economics, like Biden's ruined our economics, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, it's like the economics of Black and brown communities has been ruined since we were like before we were free. Like we haven't even gotten to really truly establish the our own economics, and whenever we do, we see what happens. We see Tulsa, we see Durham, we see Move in Philly, etc. You know, when we see, like Bernie was saying, when we see indigenous people, we see immigrants come here from other places and they set down roots and they start creating, you know, family, and they start creating community. That is concerning to these folks because in their minds it says they're taking from us, versus the perspective of having the consciousness that says when people are coming here and they are building a community, that's going to naturally uplift every other community, because you bring good, you add good. And it really is something that I think on a basic level, when you all said, you know, why can't we move freely? Well, we were brought here to be slaves. So this country has never reconciled and said, like, this wasn't a good idea for us. This country has never said, like, you know, slavery wasn't really like the best thing for us. And until that, like, as a culture becomes the American way, this will continue to be a part of the ethos that people subscribe to make themselves feel American. And that's the thing. It's not even that it's a matter of feeling powerful. It's that it feels American to be xenophobic, to be racist, and to really make an effort to center whiteness. But I really appreciate this. I actually do have to go and set up the stage. And we actually are going to be featuring a video about the People's Coalition in the show tonight, so that we can expose more people to what the work is that you guys are doing. I need to specifically say that you need to make a new video and put the website in the video so that people can go to the website immediately, but I did an edit so that it's there. But I really just think that this is the type of work that a lot of people will scream and holler that needs to be done, not knowing that it's been being done and that it's happening, and that they can be a part of it. So thank you all for creating this space and continuing to see it flourish, and, you know, creating ways for people to thrive in spite of.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bernie.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Abe. Now a lot
right,
more people know, and we'll continue to spread the good word, uplift the work of the People's Coalition and MILPA and Baji and all the organizations that are part of it. Thanks everybody for joining us for Get Free Fridays. You know, let's keep
appreciate it. Thank you, Tia.
All right, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, that'll be easy.
All right, you guys.
Oh,
Good meeting you, Bernie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.